Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, specialists in downsizing and seniors residences.
And welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. My name is Matt Delvecchio, specializing in life transitions, downsizing in the senior living industry.
And I'm Corrie Matt, clinical social worker and psychotherapist, and author of Someone Died, Now What?
Just listening to Sherry and hugging family, we're seeing more and more of that, Corrie, aren't we? You're with family right now. My sister came in town last week from Toronto. It was so good for her to see.
What was that like?
It's amazing. I mean, you think about it, right? 15, 16 months. So it was great to see Alana, and I know my dad was happy to see her. So we're getting more and more of these reunions.
Oh, it's so heartwarming.
And like you're seeing family too, so I'm happy for you, Corrie.
Right. Speaking of which, meet Avromi Steiner. He was born into an Orthodox Jewish family. He's the oldest of 6 children. Despite being raised Orthodox, he chose to live a more secular life, otherwise referred to in the Orthodox community as going off the Derech. Let's hear about what that was like. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, Avromi.
Happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So I just gave a cursory definition of going off the derech. What, for our listeners, what does going off the derech mean?
Sure. So there's really 2 ways to look at it. From the wide angle, going off the derech. Now, derech is the Hebrew word for a path. So the path here in question is whichever lifestyle you were raised in. So, for example, I was raised Orthodox. For me, going off the derech would be going off of the path of being an observant Orthodox Jew. The other way to look at it is not as a decision as much, but as kind of like an accumulation of things that slowly lead to moving away from that path.
It's interesting. I like that term, the way it's described, going off the path of Rami, because I think for many people and many children, they are going through what you have gone through and perhaps still going through about going off the path, regardless of religion. But can you give us a little background of Rami, but what it was like when you were growing up and how religious was it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the oldest of 6, as Corrie said. Grew up in West Rogers Park, which is one of the largest Orthodox Jewish communities in the United States. We were one of the families that were, there in the beginning. My parents have lived in the same house for 30 years. And when we grew up, it was very standard fare. We went to all boys private schools, Orthodox Jewish schools. We learned Hebrew, we learned Gemara, Chumash, Bible studies, and all that stuff in the morning. Secular stuff like English and math only in the afternoon. So our curriculum was bifurcated, and it wasn't an environment that was conducive to people like myself who like to think outside the box and ask questions. And that's really where things started coming to a head when I got old enough to be kind of questioning why I had to do certain things.
You're listening to Avromi Steiner. He's talking about his journey from Orthodox religion to becoming a secular Jew, and he's talking to us on Life Unrehearsed. Okay, how much exposure did you have to or openness to the secular world when you were in that environment?
Great question. So growing up in that community, we really had very limited exposure. My grandparents on my mother's side are Chicago aficionados. My grandfather had season tickets to the Chicago Bulls. My grandmother was a docent at the Museum of Contemporary Art. So we did get our fair share of sports and culture, but we never really got to experience the city. I'd say when I was 10 or 11 years old, I switched to a school on the south side of Chicago for my junior high school years. And that was really when I, for the first time, realized that the world was far, far, far more expansive than I was led to believe.
Interesting. And I guess that leads right into, you obviously as a child, and as you mentioned, as growing up and as you're maturing, you're seeing things, and now you're exposed to really a much greater exposure to what you had before. But was the decision to be secular, Avromi, you think it's an ongoing process, or can you pinpoint a specific moment or two where you knew that this wasn't the life for you?
I think I would agree with the former position that it's an ongoing process. I don't think that, for anybody in my position, any of my friends, anybody who I know, any of my siblings, friends, I think it's the exception, not the rule, that there is a particular instance or a point that happens where you say, that's it, I'm turning it in, I'm not going to be with this anymore, that's all. I think it really is an ongoing process because not everybody is secular in the same way. Some people hold on to tradition, some people hold on to knowledge, some people do certain things, some people don't do anything. And I think that there are a lot of levels and intricacies in the paths people take, which is why they're all unique.
I'm listening. I'm like riveted. Honest to God, I love this discussion. So here's something: you moved to Israel. Here's someone who's become secular, yet you moved to Israel. So how does that connect to your choice to be religious or not religious? Or
and it's funny because I got asked that question both in Chicago and in Israel. They were confused as well. And it's a good question. The answer, though, is that it was purely a personal decision. In August of 2015, sadly, my best friend passed away, and it was a very difficult time for me, and I spent a few months really processing where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. Trying to, emotionally recover from that loss. And by the end of the year 2015, I had decided that I wanted to be out of Chicago, but I wasn't quite sure where. I took a trip to Israel for 10 days, birthright. I wound up staying for 10 weeks, and 10 months later, I moved. So it was not it had really had very little, if not nothing, to do with my decision. It was a purely personal decision based on my life circumstances at the time.
Listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matt and Corrie, and that's Avromi Steiner about his journey from Orthodox religion to a more secular life. And Avromi, just before traffic, I wanted to ask you, first of all, how old are you, Avromi?
I will be 31 in 9 days.
Okay, so 31 years old. So you've experienced life. It's not something that has just happened, and you've made a lot of decisions. And I would imagine, though, what you've been exposed to, there may still be some traditions that still resonates with you. And is there something that you still practice, even though you are not considered you're secular?
I couldn't point to one, but I retained all the knowledge. I'm a chameleon. I can still put myself in a synagogue and perfectly blend in. I can always make myself appropriate for whatever setting. But, I'd say the biggest tradition that I took from it that I carry to this day is to love and care for my family.
No, so beautiful. Okay, we have to go out to traffic, but when we come back, we're going to hear from Avromi. I want to know if there have been any regrets with this decision and this process. So,
Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Flora-Lee Senior Residences. Always there for you. Safe, reassuring, and comforting. We call it home.
Welcome back. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I just got Matt smiling. That was fun. I'm Corrie Matt along with Matt Del Vecchio, and we are talking to Avromi Steiner about his journey from Orthodox religion to living a much more secular life. So, Avromi, I'm very curious to hear, are there any regrets with your decision?
None whatsoever.
Okay.
Listen, I don't believe in regrets. If you if you regret all of the yesterdays, you never reach tomorrow.
Yep.
Fair enough.
So
I agree
true,
with you.
and good on you. You made a decision, and you're moving forward with it. Avromi, I'm telling you that this really topic is resonating. We're getting texts left and right here, and a lot of people want to know about the reaction from your family. And I think because it resonates, no matter what the religion, to have these discussions with your parents, I'm sure couldn't have been easy. How has what was that process like? What were those discussions like?
Yeah, I think that the really interesting word that you use there is discussions, because I would describe them more as shouting matches. It's very rare that, you formally sit down at the table and, kind of dictate terms on what you're willing to continue to observe or not observe, or what the lines are. Those sort of discussions don't exist, really. It's if one of the kids makes a choice, I've had friends who have been kicked out of their homes for going off the derech. I've had friends whose families have changed, and I am fortunate to kind of be somewhere in the middle. I am blessed with two wonderful parents who recognized that it was time to take me out of that boys' Orthodox school, knowing that it would be showing me a lot more of the world than they had ever intended at that age. And credit to my parents all the way for recognizing that and setting me on the path that I am on now.
That's such a beautiful answer, and really kudos to your parents for hearing and recognizing who you are and what would be best for you.
And it wasn't easy. Yeah,
I'm sure not.
It just wasn't easy for them either. Me being the oldest, it was very, very difficult for them to come to terms with in the beginning.
I have no doubt. So let's, you being the oldest, let's talk about your siblings. We've mentioned you have 5 siblings. So you were, and being the oldest, where are they in this spectrum of orthodoxy?
So we were all born between 90 and 99, within, all 18 months apart. And just to give an idea of where we all are, so or what the bulk of our career has been to this point. From top to bottom, we have a comedian, a musician, an artist, a rabbi, a lawyerish person, and a chef, and a chef. So not the typical, engineer, accountant, rabbi, list that people usually have. It's really interesting. We kind of went splitsies, because me and the 2 brothers right under me were raised very differently than our younger 3 siblings. It took those rough patches and those roadblocks and those hurdles that myself and my 2 younger brothers directly under me went through for my to change their style up a little bit. And my youngest 3 siblings, or 2 of my youngest 3 siblings, are still devoutly Orthodox. One is a little more modern Orthodox, and the oldest 3 we're just not observant at all. We respect it. It'll always be a part of us, but we believe it shouldn't be forced onto someone. Everybody should have that agency of choice.
Interesting and very encouraging, because like you said, Avromi, it could have turned the other way like it has in so many other families. And you're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Del Vecchio here with Corrie Matt, and we're talking to Avromi Steiner about his journey from Orthodox religion to a more secular life. We're wrapping up here, Avromi, but you recently got married. Congratulations. Mazel tov.
Thank you very much.
Now, obviously what you've gone through, I'd love to get your opinion. How important was it that your partner be of the same religion for you?
So that actually, I would say, taking out traditions, I would say that would be one more. It was extremely important for me because, regardless of my level of observancy, where I came from, where I am now, I am a Jewish person. And that is what I have been, and that is what I always will be. And I am proud of it. I am extremely proud of my heritage. And it was very important to me that whoever my partner would turn out to be, that they would also be Jewish, because coming from such a complex place, you really need someone who can begin to grasp some of the things that have gone on.
Fair enough. So moving forward, how do you envision raising your children?
That's a great question. I definitely want them to be raised. I want their education, part of their education to be of their heritage and of the holidays and of the traditions. And if one of them chooses to be more religious, by all means, I would certainly love them and be proud of them. And if they chose to remain more secular, that's fine as well. But I do think it is important to maintain our cultural heritage and legacy through future generations.
And when might you be thinking of having those children, Avromi?
No pressure, Avromi. Yeah. And I won't let her put you on the spot like that. No need to answer. You know what?
In
We're
the
already.
In the U.S., we have the right to not answer.
I'm choosing the fifth.
Right.
There you go. There you go.
All right, Avromi, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking some time. We want to wish you all the best in your new married life, and thanks for coming on the show here.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. That's Avromi Steiner sharing his journey from Orthodox religion to becoming more of a secular life. Corrie, we've got a big show planned for next week. What do we've got going on?
Yeah. Next week, we're going to learn about how to support your children with special needs as they go to the dentist, and the crippling story of Claire Nelson. She fell over 25 feet while hiking at a national park. She broke her pelvis, and yet she survived 4 days in the California heat before being rescued. We're going to hear her story.
Fascinating story with Claire Nelson. So happy she'll be on the show next Saturday. Thank you for tuning in to Life Unrehearsed. As a reminder, for all your inquiries or assistance with retirement homes, seniors residences, or downsizing, it'd be my pleasure to help. Our services are completely free. Call me at Lianas Senior Transition Support at 514-622-8074 or lianasservices.com. Many thanks to our technical producer, Jimmy G. Great job again, Jimmy. You can listen to Life Unrehearsed here on CJAD 800 every Saturday at 3 p.m.
Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, specialists in downsizing and seniors residences.
Hi, Mom. Are you still serious about moving into a residence?
Yes, dear, but with COVID-19, I'm not so sure.
Well, at Résidence Floralie, almost everyone's been vaccinated.
But I want comfort too, you know.
Floralie residences are spacious, bright.
What about health services? Long-term care, I need that.
They have nursing staff and...
Wait, is it Floralie?
That's right, IES. Or call 438-396-6121.
Floralie Seniors Residences, the choice to live your life well.